Hello, viewers. I am Mark Michael. I am joined by our lead web developer, Eric Willis of DevHub. And if you haven't caught any of our other videos, they're linked here below, or probably not at all, but somewhere in this channel. I don't have
You
time
can
for
find it. Just look in the playlist. You'll find it. It's cool.
that. Okay, listen. We're talking about today AI, websites, and then some combination of both of those, individually or together. Eric, before we start, what I wanted to say was, regardless of what we say, this is not going to age well. Regardless,
Probably. That's
I keep
you know.
thinking like the Katie Couric thing, which is like the internet. Like, what's email? What's da 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 da? Like, again, who knows? Because a lot of this is, I'm sure, is going to be like predictions and whatnot. But again, we're talking about AI at the current state it is as of the fourth quarter, 2024. Where are we at? What are a couple of your hot takes, and let's riff.
Okay. I mean, I want to get your opinion on, kind of where it's going. You're the one who wanted to talk about this. And then
Right.
I was like, hey, we should talk, because there's the new articles coming out about what they're, hallucinations, right? Which is a new term that or an old term used in a new way to kind of describe when like AI goes rogue and its description that you're asking for. And in particular, the AI whispers, uh, it's just supposed to be like a dictation app, right? So the doctor is supposed to just say something and then this app just type it out, right? And the fact that it then at some point goes rogue and just starts kind of writing whatever it wants, uh, is kind of a weird thing. And I think it kind of shows that it isn't what people think it is yet. But again, the part where it doesn't age well is like, yeah, it could though. And I think that's where a lot of people see it, right? It's like, yeah, right now it's an infant. It makes kind of weird videos of Will Smith eating spaghetti, right? That's like the meme.
Yeah.
Uh, which is it's impressive. I don't know if you've ever seen the George Carlin stand-up video. There's a huge thing about that. But that was the first time I was like, oh, dang. But then like later on it comes out like whether it's true or not that he said he wrote most of the stuff, it wasn't AI, whatever. It was kind of played off as it being AI, but it's not. Hard to know, right? Uh but like it's sometimes it scares you and sometimes it's a joke of like what it does. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't do anything.
And again, I think listen, to me, what all I heard was the keyword was yet. Yet, right? So again, let's just say the last year has been interesting, right? Like I would say, like, whatever ChatGPT was announced initially as, at least a consumer facing, and I call it AI, you can call it large language model, you call it whatever the hell you want. But again, that was like the first, that and Midjourney were the two I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And the more I played with those, the more, again, yeah, there was like weird quirks, right? Like even yesterday, I mean, I'm going to go back on that one. But even yesterday, I was playing with Runway, and I was like, I upload my image. Because again, like I do believe in like the potential, right? Like, can you turn this into a character? Can this character be in a movie, in a cartoon strip? Like all the things that I would have to hire all these other people to do. Can I play with my likeness? Again, I'm like interested in that, right? Just based on the way people consume different types of content. So then when ChatGPT first came, that was the first like, holy shit. But then again, like playing with it, it was like always off. So I never really trusted its tone, So I basically ended up going back to me doing kind of all the things. And then what happened was I caught some little video about Google's Notebook ML or whatever it was called. Notebook, yeah, Google's LM. I forgot what it was called. I mean, Google's, I think it was Notebook. And it was like, hey, again, I uploaded an article I had written a couple months ago or a month ago or 2 months ago into it. And it created that whole podcast of the two people talking back and forth, the girl and the guy, talking about the article I wrote, like indistinguishable from two humans talking, so much so that I couldn't believe it. I fed it an article about a website about my nephew who's in real estate, very young guy in real estate in Arizona. and the two characters are talking like, well, this guy seems kind of shady because he actually has no listings. Like, is that part of his play? Or like it was literally like, basically trying to figure out, is this guy suspect or not? And I was like, oh, I mean, that's when I was like, holy shit. Like, I look at it, again, we've had a couple of people who came from, like, let's say, content marketing content companies, who those companies were slashed to like a quarter of their workforce. And so I wonder, for me, I'm always like, okay, what does that mean for the future of websites? Right. And Daniel, our my co-founder, I mean, he's, I would say leads R&D, leads product, leads a bunch of stuff.
He's our AI.
Right. Yeah. He just keeps saying like the websites we're doing are just too complex at this time. Right. He's not saying never, but at this time, aka this time being the next 5+ years, where it's like, can AI spit out a cool design that you can then riff on, but like, is it there to integrate with 4 different, tools? Is it there to integrate, and he's like, it's just not there,
When AI can take a client design request and implement it, then they can have my job. You know what I mean?
Right. But like, what do you think that timeline is? So again, let me just say one asterisk to this is what I hope for us as a company in the website realm is that we figure out our sales marketing flywheel, so we're actually scaling a little bit faster than we are today, full transparency, and out on the record now, so that we're getting ahead of our R&D, so that as we need to bake in some of those tools, like more, again, what I worry is, I hope this is not like a metaverse, phase. I hope this isn't like what was another one that was kind of weird after metaverse? Anyway, there was another one. Again, like, I just want to get ahead of it so we truly are the leader in whatever DevHub can be for whatever the future of websites are. If that includes AI, obviously it will, I'm sure. Like, how do we leveraging all the tools, But regardless, like, what do you think the timeline is before potentially like even your job?
The one thing that everyone has used, these large language models or OpenAI, AI, whatever you want to call it for, is like content generation, right? They've used it either brainstorming through visual means or verbal, like text means, right? Those are the two things that I would say almost every person has experimented in some way. And OpenAI like revolutionized that in a lot of ways, and Midjourney and others with the images, and then obviously the video now. I love the Trump Biden Xbox game, meme ones. Like, it's very good for generating content, especially probably copyrighted content, which, legacy media. See, this is to me one thing that's going to really hold AI back that no one talks about is when it's using legacy media as a large portion of its model. Do you think they're just going to take that lying down? Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, no.
Well,
when Gronk is making Mickey Mouse with a big cigar in his mouth, you don't think like Disney is going to come after you for that kind of stuff? And that's where, like, it's not the Wild West, because most of the stuff is copyrighted. We have laws that protect a lot of this stuff. So I don't know. There's that aspect of it that I don't think it's talked about enough.
So what I heard, right? What I heard, again, I think it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Robert Downey Jr. both comment, right? Like, because again, supposedly when they did their deals to do some of their movies, right? In theory, the studio owns whatever that image, copyright, whatever is, and they have the largest, in theory, as of right now, like known sort of content, right, in terms of recognizable faces. And again, the thing I read from today from Robert Downey Jr. was like, you can't use my image and likeness, period. I don't give a shit what I signed back in the day, right? And it's funny because, again, like, yes, that I can see from his perspective that you can't. At the end of the day, like me, a no-name guy, right, who's like, can I upload myself to the thing, right? Make me a great actor, right? And can I build a following where, yeah, I don't have the legacy of those movies, but again, the next generation born won't even know who that is anyway. Oh, yeah. And it's like, and if they grow up with, like, I don't know, like, honestly, like, there's there was like I actually did a post on it on my own little website. I said, now is the time, now is the time, now is the time, now is the time. I think now is the most important time that we're at that like legit convergence crossroads of it, like it being, again, content tools, whatever you want to call it, AI, going in a way where it's like, and then today I was like, oh, it's going to create, yesterday, what was I watching? Something, it was like, it's going to create way more jobs, not take them away, because it make, and so it's like,
well, to me,
yeah,
the inflection point, and it was recent, was when you see Microsoft and all these people like reopening 3 Mile Island for the nuclear energy
I saw
because
that.
they know they're gonna need it, right? And it's like, oh, like it's legit, because like I don't know, it's probably not. I would say generally probably not like it's 50-50 whether people nuclear is the future or not, but like them leaning in like, no, we're going to need a lot of power to do the future. Essentially, we're going to need this, and do that. To me, it was like, well, there's no turning back at this point. Like it is the future, and as far as like taking jobs or just like what it'll do, and kind of even tying back to the original question of like how this affects websites, right? And it's really good at generating content. It still requires humans to vet that content. Is it relevant? Because the AI is not determining relevancy. It's kind of piecing together relevant words, and it sometimes it pops out good and sometimes it pops out bad. And so there's still that level right now, at least, of like that checking. And I think there will always be some validation, right? Just like we do with humans, you have to validate other humans' work as well. You're not just gonna assume everything a computer spits out is right too. But as far as like the websites, I mean, again, I always say this, at least with our job, the hardest part of any project is determining the content because there's so much. There's images, there's icons, there's text, there's fonts, there's like content of spacing and styles, that kind of design side of it as well, and like, will an AI be good at generating those things or even just helping a user brainstorm stuff? Absolutely. You know what I mean? And that kind of stuff will only get better over time, and it's proven that even in the last year, especially with the video stuff. That's what really scares me, because I'm always the person with like, my first judgment is with my eyes. I really just judge what I see and then extrapolate from there. And if something can truly lie to you in a way that's uh you know not obvious, right, then that's when it gets scary, right? And that's where everyone always talks about the scariness of it. AI, there's the Terminator version where they just nuke us all in one go, and then it's like world, something. But to me, it's much more sinister when it's just like, what can you trust anymore? Like, what is real and what isn't? And that's scary, obviously.
I mean, you took me on a little bit of a roller coaster of me being like really calm to me getting scared again. And that's like, I mean, honestly, that's been
Well,
like,
I get it though.
that's been like a year,
It's
honestly.
realist, being real about it.
That's been like the year with it. I mean, again, I don't want to name names, but we told somebody recently within the company, we're like, please stop using ChatGPT, right? AKA, or at least vet what you're giving us, because it just it's wrong, It's like, it was like and I was like, it's so obvious when it is, right? It's like, what's like the opening line of like everything generated by ChatGPT is like, in a complex world, like, it's like,
Yes, the world is complex.
like,
Exactly.
please don't open like that. At least don't make it that obvious. But yeah, I mean, again, it's funny that we keep coming back to content, and again, content will, whether that's words, images, video. I mean, but that is a big portion of it, not including robotics, right? Not including, because again, that's how we're interfacing a lot with it, but yeah, I mean, again, like I started clicking on a bunch of the YouTube videos where it's like someone pieced together the whole video using like Runway ML or whatever it's called. And it was like, it's like a 5-minute short, 4-minute short, and you can see it's like off, but it's like the fact that it could be anyone, right? It could be that person in Ohio, me, like anybody can go create what's in their head, like on the fly like that. regardless if it's shitty or not, you're getting out a story. Like, I don't know. That's what I want to be part of that, just that initial wave of being able to create. I have so many ideas like that, right? And again, like I've been fortunate enough, in my early years, I had a great creative co-founder. Obviously, I still do, but now it's more business. But it's like, here's this idea, and you'd be like, oh yeah, here it is, Mark. Da, 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 da. Well, now I don't even have to talk to anybody, and I can be like, I don't have to talk to a video guy. I don't got to talk to anybody. I can like an editor. I don't have to talk to nobody. Like literally lately, as I've been playing with some of the tools, it's been a full-blown conversation, right? But again, I'll just say this thing, and I'll pass it back to you. Is like, so I've been playing with. I'll just say for Chat GPT for GPT, yeah, for a split second. Like, so I've been playing. I mean, I ask it everything, right? I was doing dimensions for a play. One of my plays, a place. I was asking it for converting this to cooking recipe to this and this, right? And then my wife was like, hey, did you know it can like tell you like about yourself? And I was like, what? He's like, oh, you go into settings, click whatever button it was. And so she did it, and it was like, you're a real estate agent, you're in Seattle, you also do Arizona, you're curious about going to law school. Like, it knew her, right? Mine was like not even close to reality, right? It was like, you're a chef, you do this. And I never deleted any of it, right? It was like, you were interested in interior design, you're interested, you're like listed off a bunch of stuff, but it like never came up with like this is who Mark is and what he's doing, And so again, it's off enough, but
though,
yeah,
in a sense of like it's, because when we talk about this and what we do, I think about this a lot because like what AI is trying to solve for is that dynamic content, right? Is that dynamic content is what we always are searching for is like, how do you get the relevant stuff to the person when they need it at the time that they need it, right? And the problem with AI is that it doesn't know shit. It doesn't know anything. It knows that a lot
yes,
of words go
yes,
together and it can be coherent, but it doesn't know the meaning of it. And that's where like you still need the people who know the stuff. And it's a way to empower you to like, when I've talked to Dan about it, a lot of his thoughts were always around like the automation side of it. Like, how do you control the AI in a way to like, hey, go do this thing every time without thinking, right? And like, the kind of tasking it to do stuff, right? It's not about asking it to like answer any question I ever give it, but it's like, hey, what if you fed it just a lot of data about trees? For instance, right? And then you made it an expert on trees and then built some sort of model to inside of a site or some sort of content structure that was an expert on trees, and then you still need people to vet the content, right? Like, is this true, right? Because there's always going to be that fact finding thing. uh don't just put it out there whatever it gives you, because if history has proven anything for people with that, it never turns out well. Okay, still trust your instinct about it, but again, yeah, like it can do so much if you point it in the right direction. And if eventually once you create like all those like sub language models for trees and flowers and birds and bugs, and then you put them all together, then that's when it gets scary, right? Because it's mostly about creating the data set, validating the data set, and then putting it all together, right? Like that. And when that happens, it'll be crazy. I think the problem is like things change at such a fast pace, it would be impossible for things to keep up. I mean, we change the meaning of words constantly to where like, is a computer going to know that and keep up with that? The relevancy of the culture of a word change and then change it throughout its whole model. Is it going to be able to do that? Is it going to be dynamic in that sense? Right. And I don't know. It could and it couldn't. Is it going to take a lot of energy and water to do that? Absolutely. And that to me is what's truly scary about it is the environmental impact, right? Again, the nuclear, that's going to suck a lot of water. It takes a lot of water to cool the data centers and things like that. People need water as well. As well as all life on the planet need it. Do we really want to incinerate water so our computer can think faster, right? Is that sustainable for life and computers? I think those are the important questions to ask. Is it the future? Yes, absolutely. But like, how do we do it in a way that it doesn't kill us and like actually makes our lives better? I think is, the better kind of thing. And it will. Will we have AI assistants in 10 years? 100%. And you can stamp that age on there. And if I'm wrong, it's because it came sooner, right? Because that's what all these tech giants are searching for right now, right? Is like, how do I bring Siri to be like actually relevant and know what they're doing? When I'm like, hey, schedule this for me. Hey, right now I had a new refrigerator that has like a warranty thing. I don't want to get on a phone call and figure this out. I was like, yo, Siri, figure this, go and get this warranty fixed for me and done, right? That is what people need and want. And when someone solves that, that to me is like the future telephone, right? Because whoever can invent that technology has invented the next thing that actually makes everyone's life easier, like the mobile phone did, right? So
How far away do you think that, that's again, great point. Like how far away do you think that part is, right? Like let's say the example of the warranty and figuring that part out.
I think it's like a decade, right?
Well, you
But
think it's
again, that's
10
something
years.
that's the like super optimistic, like it'll probably be sooner. Because again, a lot of that stuff to me is not self-driving, right? So self-driving AI, that is way too dynamic of a data set to solve, right? Because again, it doesn't know how to drive. It just knows that there's objects out there. And sometimes it sees those objects and sometimes it doesn't, just like a human, right? And it's it's going to be way too hard to actually get something that thinks, right? That sees those objects and knows how to react properly in a safe manner that is reasonable, like Waymo and stuff. I mean, it's there and it's getting there. But like I think like the AI assistant stuff will come way sooner because there's way less downside. You know what I mean? Of like, there's no, if it hallucinates my setting my timer wrong or something. But like answering questions and it giving you like a factual answer, that to me is where we're probably actually farther off maybe than we think. Because how do you prove that something is true, right? what is the what is the determined factor in truth, right? And are we going to outsource that to the computers to determine that? I don't see how you could ask the AI anytime in the next 10 years a question and trust its answer. And maybe I'll be wrong, but I think if they're saying it's doing that, I still think there's got to be some fakeness behind it. Going to like uh, yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
I mean,
But I
look,
just,
I,
I think it can be faked and like you should still be somewhat skeptical, of like, is it actually doing what you think it's doing? Uh, but yeah.
I mean, again, on the Waymo point, I only take when I'm in Arizona. I basically only take Waymo. I trust it
Okay.
more with my life because my rationale is like it only has one job and it is to drive and to understand everything all the time. Versus again, like last holiday, I had my aunt and uncle in town, my parents. They wanted to go somewhere, so I was driving them, and they're like, yelling and talking really loud. I'm driving on the freeway like 75, 80 miles an hour, whatever the hell it was. And I was like thinking about what they're talking about, like why I'm even going to take them anywhere. They could have done this themselves. Like I'm thinking about a million, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm flying past semi trucks. I'm like thinking about a million things, but like just, naturally just driving. I was like, at that moment, I was like, oh my God, no human should ever drive. Like I was like, this
Dude,
is
I
the most
want it.
dangerous
I
activity
hate driving.
to be
I hate
hurling
I hate
ourselves in a
other humans who drive.
right, like again,
You
like
know?
another 20,000 pound or however heavy a car is or SUV, whatever, and it's like we're just hurling ourselves down the street, thinking about our lives, and like we're trusting that the next person is also like coherent enough to be like paying attention. It's like actually I trust the robot or whatever the hell you want to call it more. Like even to the airport, now, I mean, the drop off, I use the Waymo in Arizona. It's mindless. You know, I set my little
I would
music.
like to do it sometime then. Whenever I eventually
It's
travel to
cheap.
Arizona.
It's cheaper. It's cheaper than Uber. I hate to say it, but I mean, basically it is. Um, and so,
But that would kill all the business for any, cab, right? Ever. And
I mean,
like,
again, like it's like that's why I'm always like trying to think, even for us, like how do we stay ahead, right? And again, we never wanted to build a company that was scared of whatever's coming next. But again, like those two instances, a Waymo pulls up to an Uber driver. It's like the cliche, like, are you crazy? Like, how the hell do you even think this is a future to continue to drive? Second is like, I don't know if you've been to SeaTac lately. You know, like the people who push like the like wheelchairs,
Mhm.
they are all robots now. Do you understand? Like the person sits in the chair and the chair moves on its own and takes the person to wherever they're going. Yeah,
Again, it's one of those things.
it's wild. It's wild. I don't know if
I
it's just
mean,
that
you know
feedback.
what? And if it works, it works. I think, and it's a great service. Uh to me, yeah, I don't know. I guess you hear that stuff, and we always want to play out the dystopian version of all this stuff. I think that's our impulse. I think mostly through media, right? In movies and how we've seen the future portrayed. But maybe it is that, and it works just fine, and nothing ever bad happens, but like the first time it pushes someone down an escalator or something on accident, right? And then it's just like, is it acceptable then, right? Still,
I'm not even
for the
gonna. I'm not
convenience,
even gonna answer that out
any
loud.
more than like a human knocking someone over and doing it, because that's where we always like, well, robots could hurt people in the real, yeah, whatever, like a car crash,
That's
right?
law one.
People have been hurt by self-driving cars, right? But is it, when you compare it to actual humans, and stuff too, it's, you always have to weigh both sides there, I think.
Yeah.
Do I want that future? Yes. Do I think it's like answering the wrong question of like, do we need self-driving cars, or do we just want better transportation, or better modes of transportation for people within their communities, right? Do we need cars for everything, or could we do things with even AI buses, right? So like, again, stepping it up, like, are cars or buses, or whatever, the Tesla one that just came out, right? And is that, could that solve stuff? I think so, sure. That actually benefit, because to me the big thing with AI to decide is like, is this going to benefit a few, or is it going to benefit all, right? And like, if we want it to benefit all, then we need to think of ways that it actually benefits all, right? And not on a per car basis or something. Like, is that really, because that to me is like pricing out a large portion of people, because like, for it to be in a car, there's not a big market for that, like mass adoption, right? But if you had an AI assistant that came with your iPhone, that is something that is easily mass adoptable and can be used by everyone. So,
I don't
and
know
then
if
it
this.
does help people.
I don't know if this plays to your point, but like, remember during like in the middle of the pandemic, they're like air quality in like LA got better, and congestion in general basically went away, and like weird flowers started growing where flowers had never grown before, and animals returned back to like where they weren't before, like again, to your point of, what's mass adoptable, right? Like in some respects, I do think like transportation is ripe for disruption, right? Because I remember one time, like they said, like traffic is caused by basically like everyone changing lanes, right? And then it slowly backs everything up. But
Yeah.
if the robots can, they know, right? Like you don't just switch lanes, right? It's like they know 5-10 steps ahead of where no human can ever think or be, based on satellite, based on a million things. Like there's no traffic ever, right?
Well, and
There's like all these like
it's so
weird
funny.
efficiencies
You
that
should go
humans have never
outside of
felt.
this video and watch like traffic dynamic waves, like how it works, right? You see the stop and then how it cascades
Right.
back, right? And how a computer could technically solve that in a live way that makes it so you never get there. And do I like? is that possible? Yes. Is that our future? Almost certainly. I mean, I'm with you on that. Well, so, because like again, I would say, and most people who drive would assume, most of traffic congestion or even accidents are caused by people in a hurry doing things they shouldn't, right? Going too fast, moving, and then it then cascades into everyone having a bad day, right? And so, and can computers remove that like tendency to move? If somebody knew that they didn't have to drive and the car was just going to do it, to me that's already a stressor, right? That like a computer can ignore, and then it obviously leads to less traffic or whatever. But to me, the biggest hang up with like, at least like AI car driving is it's still too much a part of the culture to drive, right? Especially in America in particular, maybe not so much in other parts of the world, but like it is such a thing still of like having your car and going, and driving. You've done this, and like driving down old highways and things. It's still too much a part of the culture for the people to just like give up having their own car, and
I don't know,
I
but
don't know.
it doesn't take that much time. I don't, tell me of this place.
Maybe you're right.
Like
Maybe
I
you're
was
right
like,
because of the convenience side of
the
it.
new, like the let's say newer generation doesn't even know what Home Alone is. Right? Like doesn't know what a cassette tape is, doesn't know what it's like. So it's like they wouldn't know any different of like driving, right? It takes like what, one generation or two before it's like, oh, you used to drive? What a psycho. Like,
That's fair. That's
like
fair.
it's like,
You could look at our generation with like CDs, right? I
right.
think that's funny now. Whenever people are on the corner trying to hawk CDs, right? Their latest CD, it's like, dude, who has a CD player? Like, what
Real
what
quick,
year is this?
Eric, but real quick, like selfishly, because I think some people do tune in because again, they see like lead web developer, website platform. Like, how are you using like AI tools for your own? Like, I know
Brainstorm.
I
I
gave like,
brainstorm all the time,
really?
content ideas or just visual
Like what
ideas
tools?
or Mid-Journey mostly, or just ChatGPT. I mean, just the standard, ones. Uh, but again, and I'm sure I use it a lot. And this is the problem I would say in general is like, I use like Grammarly, right? They advertise that they use like AI shit,
I think Grammarly is
language
so
stuff.
screwed. I mean, I don't even know how Grammarly can even still be in business right now, but that's a whole nother
Well,
thing.
but they have the best data model for this, I would say, right? And so
I mean,
therefore they have
honestly, it's whichever one you can click faster. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I don't know.
I don't
I,
know. I mean, I like it, but again, it's being sold as that maybe, I guess. And so like therefore like, how many tools do I use that like technically use these like language model things that I just don't think about? uh Chat widgets and things like that that you interact with. I mean, those are almost all certainly some version of this type of thing.
but how about
uh,
like on the like design development
on the
front?
design side, no, I mean, I don't.
How about
uh,
developer like code snippets, this and that?
Again, I would never trust it for anything.
Yet,
uh
yet.
yeah, like, Google kind of already does it technically, because like when I will, again, I don't know everything, but I know the function that I need. So I'll search the function, and Google does that like AI, and sometimes but it's just like spitting back some like regurgitated version of like Stack Overflow, right? And so I'm still gonna have to go to Stack Overflow to confirm that it reinterpreted that information and didn't hallucinate something, that I'm, is not relevant to me, right? And so that's where like, yes, it gives it to me, but I'm still just going to go past it to find that information. Now, will everyone do that? No, of course not. But I don't know, I do, and that's where like, again, I don't trust it for things that have to happen. But as far as like a creative tool, it's like invaluable. I've used it to like design my tattoo, right? Because like in my head, I have this idea. And the only way to do that before was like get some designer friend that you knew how to use Illustrator and design. Like, I know you've done this, right? You used
I
to,
do it all the time. I
yo,
used
do
to
this
do it all the time.
logo, make me this logo, right? Where now these tools do that very easily. And then once you have something, then you could take it to someone, a tattoo artist, and be like, hey, here's my tattoo. This is either what I want or like the general idea, but I still want your interpretation, right? Or whatever. And I think that for that, it is so good. And I'm sure it can do that thing for music. Or again, like you said with scripts, you can write a script and it can build it for you in a visual manner. That is like amazing, right?
The two ways I used it this last few weeks was one, moving to a new place. I plugged in all the dimensions, right, and was like, tell me basically, how you should lay this out. Now, their renderings were so off, but in terms of like the spaces between everything, it was spot on, right? And then the other way I used it, I was that way, and then what was the other way I used it this week? Was plugging in the dimensions. But again, like I was thinking, like if you're an architect, right? Like I would be freaked out a little bit in the sense that if somebody has the creative idea of what they want their place to look like, floor plan ish, and then ChatGPT can go in there and like actually create, okay, well, this is where you need a door, this is where you need sockets, this is where you need like all the things. I was like, damn, that was close. That was good. Oh, and the other one was like, I wanted to render an idea for this coffee shop. And I was like, literally, so now ChatGPT added the editing ability within ChatGPT. So before, remember, it would spit out like weird ass like letters and shit. So now you can basically highlight over those and be like, no, I wanted to say this, and it nailed it. Like so realistic, forget CAD, forget whatever. And I was like, oh my God, like I sent it to everybody. I'm like, this is exactly what was in my head. It's right here. And I was
That
like,
it still required your creativeness
oh, 100%.
to get there, right? And so that's where, is it going to replace creative people? No, it's going
Well,
to
no, and you
enhance
still
what
need
they
someone to
can
execute
do.
anyway,
And
too.
the
Like,
things like a lot of time, like yes, I can make logos and I can go make assets and things like that, but like, do I want to do that? No. Would I like an AI to do that for me if I describe it to them? Absolutely. Right. And I would say in general, it's there for the most part. I mean, you can get a lot of visual assets that will pass 95% of people's just initial glances, right? And so, again, from the content sense, like it can create all the content. If you can vet it and chop it up, it will save you so much time, you know? And again, it didn't take any less people to do it necessarily or less creative people. It just enhanced it and it made their job easier. So therefore they could deliver on more things, right? Uh, again, to me, AI again is a productivity tool. That's where if it's driving us everywhere, in my mind, that makes us more productive, right? In a lot of sense. And so therefore, like it will be adopted at some point. Anything that makes anything more productive will happen, right? That is the natural progression of capitalism in a lot of sense, because it's just a march for productivity. And that's why you see everyone leaning into it, and you have Microsoft has their AI and Apple has theirs and Meta and all the big tech giants all have their AI models. But I think there'll still be plenty of room for other people to hyper specialize in AI as well, for certain things. Because as long as you can become a trusted uh source for even just like a niche piece of data, that'll be valuable.
I thought your tree example was awesome, right? Like,
Because like Google's not going to want to invest in that, but like if somebody does, it would be good. You know
I mean,
what I
like a WebMD that doesn't lead to cancer every time.
mean? Right.
Like
Yeah,
it's like,
well, and that to me too is where it is scary, and what started this whole conversation in general is this Whisper app that was used by doctors would randomly hallucinate weird stuff. Now, was it obvious most of the time? Like, yeah, it appeared to be. Uh, but like, could it be less obvious but believable enough? Right? What if it
well, that's
gave
what it
you
is.
the
That's in a weird way. That's where it is now, right? Like
well,
again,
and
like it's just like,
that's where it's scary. Is like again, is it good for like, hey, a doctor is trying to transcribe a dosing of a drug for someone, and it hallucinates the wrong dose, and something happens to that patient, right? Like, is that acceptable? Is that being like addressed and thought about, right? Because that to me is where you can't trust it, right? Because it's proven to do these hallucinations. So therefore, just because the hallucination isn't obvious doesn't mean it's not an hallucination, right? And so therefore you still have to validate, because that's what you saw people get in trouble for, like when they like tried to submit it to like the court, right? And the hallucination that it hallucinated like actual court cases that proved the point, right? They didn't go and validate that those court cases even existed, right? Which even just a little bit of scrutiny would have like peeled back that like, hey, this isn't right, right? But then and then you give it and then you get in trouble for it. So like again, you can't trust it for things that matter, and that's where again the driving matters, because it affects a lot of lives, and some people do it right and other people the car crashes and hurts people. So what's the in between there? Like we'll get there eventually, but and probably a lot sooner than what I'm guessing. I mean, a decade probably is way too long, but
It would be funny though to talk about all the funny kind of memes that come out. For sure.
I mean, it's great. Yeah, I mean, let's dedicate it to the good stuff.
Yeah. All right. Talk about taking out of context. I mean, we can't even laugh about half of it. But yeah. So, what about the election? We're not going there. That's not.
We're not
show.
going there.
That is not this show.
Yes.
Cool. I mean, is there any last words of anything you think related to
I thought it was
AI,
fun.
website, productivity? Again, I read a long time ago or watched or listened to, basically said like people do enjoy hearing two people just have a natural conversation, without the fluff of like, really great question, Eric. Let me talk about, like, no, this. And
That's because it's dynamic and fluid, and again, when a computer can replace that.
Okay,
right?
I'm telling you, that Google tool did, man.
Yeah, but like, did it or did it just, again, did it create the illusion? Is it an illusion? Right?
It's like a guy and girl totally having a real conversation. Right? Like, again, like a classic, more polished podcast than even the one I produce. And I was
Yeah, but
like,
is that natural? Will people be pulled into that? I mean, that's where
basically what I did was, again, maybe not you, but I would say the majority maybe or yes, because again, the few people I was like, yo, look, someone took my article and created a whole podcast around it, and I played it, and they're like, oh my God, that is so, and I was like, that's fake.
you're also using it for good too. I mean, it's so easy, you see like all the like social network user, spam kind of stuff with AI, right? And like user
I'm curious,
like interactions and stuff. Like, so there's that too of like social networks have gotten kind of bad with like the weird kind of AI generated just spam, right? And
there's like an account on Instagram I follow. It's called like Sunday Nostalgia. And again, like it's like nostalgia for the 90s or 80s or whatever, and like it's like Christmas in, Chicago. And it's like, and like you've seen the image, and then like you see another image, like, well, that's not real. But it's like I'm not also unsubscribing. Okay, so I wanted to see if that episode actually had more views than other ones. I published that particular podcast episode. No, it did average numbers. It didn't do less though. Yeah, interesting. Again, the podcast episode that I had the Google tool use,
okay.
and seeing like if it did better numbers than mine on like a regular just publish, it didn't. So again,
that's where like something like that could pop. I mean, I see there's a lot of like, I was just like AI slop or whatever of like people just they basically are just prompt really weird imagery and then farm engagement off of that, and I don't know, it's a niche, it's kind of weird. I'm not like, I don't hate it, but it's weird. It's just a weird, that's that new space now that at least these tools are creating where like, yeah, could you get your buddy friend to like make some like super hyper specific like drawing of something or whatever? They're gonna like laugh at you, but you can like tell it to a computer and it output it. Now, a lot of the stuff that you hear is very like sensationalized, and I'm not gonna like delve into those in like specific, but you know, the things that these tools can do are very cool.
Have you played with the music?
They
Have you
are
played with
useful.
Have you played with any of the music ones?
No, no.
It's like
No.
Suna or Suno. One of them I played with. I was like, oh my god! Like,
Is that where you just like you prompt like 90s slow jazz singing about like popcorn,
right,
right? And then it knocks out like a chorus and a verse. Yeah, exactly.
right.
And this
But
is
like,
where like prompt engineering, right? It's something maybe we haven't talked about, or how it's going to create more jobs is like exactly like because we're going to need people because you're prompting this thing to come up with what you need, and then it generates it, then that person vets it and moves it forward.
again, I went down real quick. I went down the prompt engineering rabbit hole, like again, many months ago. So maybe it's changed. Obviously, it probably has. Is like I went down it, and then all of a sudden, like I was like, why can't this freaking thing, generate the prompt for me? Like, why am I trying to come up with the prompts? I'm
Because
like,
that's the creative side, though. Because
yeah,
the
but still, it's
prompts
like
are
at
like
least like
the
it can give me
thing.
the general guideline, And again, like it seemed to
But
have
that
worked.
comes from knowing something. That comes from, because like what makes a story beautiful or like compelling is just like the relatability, right? Which comes from experience and shared experience, which again, these models don't have. They're just good at putting words together. And that's where again the prompt is like, to me, it's that the actual meaning, like you're giving it the meaning, and then it's just giving you back then like its interpretation of that in words. It's like, I'm horrible at just writing in general, right? And so can I have an idea but not know how to convey it properly? And these tools like help me with that. Yeah, that's what I use it for most of the time, is like, hey, this is my idea. Okay. No, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. Oh, that's good. Keep that, but this. I don't like that. I don't,
100%.
and that's the prompt, right? Because you're massaging the idea flow into a usable product that then is what you want to come up with, right? And it helps push that along.
I guess what I'll say
So
is like I've obviously played with a lot of the different tools, and I've actually signed up and paid for no less than 15 of them probably at this point. And I will put in that initial prompt, and if it's so off, immediately cancel delete account, right? Because a lot of them
sorry.
will they promise the thing, and then the thing is like not the thing at all, like
I
zero
mean, you
point
got to give
zero.
it a few. You give it a few
I
tries.
definitely give it a few, but when it
Okay.
constantly keeps generating like three fingers and like turning me into like something totally weird, again, to me, it's like, again, it keeps coming back to, OpenAI is still to me the basic leader in the consumer's mind. Second would be Google at this moment in time. And then all these little ancillary ones. But I mean, again, like I used to use Midjourney a lot. And again, whatever the Dolly with ChatGPT started, when they started combining the images with the text or text to image, like it got like almost better because the editing tools were baked in versus like Midjourney where I didn't really have the ability to edit at the time. And now I can within ChatGPT. And so it's like, fuck, I don't know what happens to Midjourney at that point then.
I mean, I used the tools a lot in the beginning. I haven't
Go back
really.
now.
Yeah, I should.
Go back
Especially the
now.
music ones. I'm really interested on the music ones. I would love to come up with a
Suno.
bunch of dumb
Let me see.
emo songs and
Suno.
related to web design.
Suno.com.
Suno?
Yeah, that's the one I've been playing with. Suno.com.
All right. Good
And they
shout
look,
out. Good plug. Ooh, I
yeah,
like
well,
their
because
website.
again, like I'll just tell you. So like I love like the YouTube just background noise or music, right? Lo-fi, da 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 da. So I caught some guy's YouTube video. He's like, yo, I found this recent YouTube channel that streams like these 3 hours of music, lo-fi, jazz, whatever. He's like, but something was interesting. All of these songs like have artist names and whatever, but it doesn't feel like they're actually songs. Like there's something off. And then he's like, I found this tool Suno. And so like, I don't know. It was like so I was like, wait, no way. I can
Well,
create those
this is
drops.
the slop though, right?
You
Is
know?
like it's just passable enough, but it really doesn't pass the taste test. You know what I'm saying? Like it looks like food, you can eat it. But like, are you going to enjoy it or is it just going to taste off? And that's the problem with most of the AI. But the problem is, like that can be fixed, right? That can change, that can get better, I would say relatively easily. Or if you get the right team working on the right product and they make a breakthrough on something like that, I mean,
I mean, it's
it's
so
perfect.
it's so close, man. I like, again, the best word that you said was yet.
Well, yeah. And there's still, I still think that there's plenty holding it back. One from the energy demands to, again, just traditional media. Because again, these are language models that are just built based on existing data, right? Like, and they get in trouble when they scrape the wrong stuff, right? The problem, this is what the web was originally built on in a lot of senses, just a lot of scraping, right? And now they don't want things to get scraped anymore, but uh because it's like used to basically like copyright infringe. But I don't know. It's just a weird scenario, but it will get better. It will get more accepted, and I don't know. I think it will generally make people's lives easier and better.
Okay, let's just make one prediction, right? And maybe we
Okay,
made a lot
well,
of mini ones.
sure.
What industry is like the true first to be like disrupted? Like, I mean, and it can be all of, like, if you had to pick one, again, I still go. Right now, my bet is Hollywood, right? Like that's where like I keep thinking, I'm like, damn, like I don't understand how, if you're just a good storyteller, the tools to create that story are now so close. It's just like you don't need
Uh,
the.
I still think things need to live in the real world to be like actually culturally relevant to some
Toy
extent.
Story,
But I mean, I guess cartoons obviously
Toy Story,
are a
Inside Out. I mean,
different world, but uh I don't know.
I still
T-
think it's Hollywood. I'm
I
like,
mean, I just don't see how you replace Hollywood as the first thing. I mean, come on, Mark, not the first thing. The
I like
first thing to me, it's got to be like some sort of low hanging fruit again that like if it's wrong is not going to kill someone or like hurt someone in any meaningful way. And that's where like one of the things that I thought I was really cool for was like interior design, right? So I took a picture of the room, I uploaded that, and then I just I prompted it what I wanted this area to look like and different like vibes, right? And then it spit out a bunch of stuff and I get ideas for like what couches and chairs and tables that might look cool, and then you just keep prompting until you find like a good selection and then maybe pick one, right? So like for that kind of stuff, like interior designer, any sort, and you kind of see it now, and like you pick out a refrigerator and then you can put it in your area, right? I think it'll replace people who specialize in that, or like tools will just replace like people do like picking out stuff for you. Like you can just basically have a computer be like, hey, here's a picture of my kitchen, design me a kitchen, where it designs you the kitchen, tags all the things, right? To like, here's the website, how much, here's the cost of all the materials. You can export this and send it to like
the
a contractor,
contractor. Yeah.
right? Like that to me is like,
How far away
again,
is that?
I don't, I mean, it's still probably years to build the data set actually and to QA it. I mean, internally, how long does QA take, right? To actually have something that people trust to deliver a honest answer, I just think will always just take time, period. Because it's going to be a trust thing that people have to get past, and it's got to prove itself, right? Just like anything, it needs to prove that it's not going to hallucinate when it's literally just a dictation app, which there's no root. I'm not asking it questions. I'm just telling it to write down what I say. You know what I mean? And so when we can get past that and trust it for those kinds of things, and it'll just be baby steps. I just think those baby steps, maybe it's like a year, and we take those baby steps. I just don't think everything's going to change in 5 years.
So I just,
You know?
again, you know what? Again, I'll be vulnerable for 2 seconds. Is I never thought it. I used to always say like, oh, everything's cool because look, you go to a bank and you can still see they're running like Windows XP. That was like my default line for like everything. It's like humans take forever to change this and that. And then again, I still think there's like some shell shock of the pandemic, of that it just happened so fast, right? Where things just did change that quickly. And it was like all of a sudden we were doing this, and now all of a sudden we're not doing that thing anymore. And so it's like, for me, it's like, okay, well, I know that was whatever that was within the world. But again, is there a technology? Again, I remember when the internet first came out, right? Like it was like, whatever, 1994 for me, 2000 before I understood a little bit more. And then, forever, not forever, but till today. But again, that progression between, 94 and 2000, and let's call it to 2008, however many of those years are, what is that, like 6 plus 8, whatever that is like, I just think it's, this moment in time is at least only is a third of that. Like I think it's like everything is less than 5 years at this point. Like again, the only thing that will slow it down, in my own personal opinion, not the views of
What's your slowdown? I'm the pessimist.
Again, the only thing that slows it down is humans, right?
Sure.
Jurisdiction, laws, politics, all the things that like are like, wait, we need to regulate, we need to do this, we need to do that. Like again, like I read somewhere, again, I need to be better at referencing what I'm reading.
Yeah, I know. We'll come more prepared in the future.
But like again, like there's like a high-speed rail in California, right? It's billions and billions of dollars, under budget, over budget, and again, like not even close to like a route that makes any sense. It's not a straight line. And because in America, what I read was that in America, like all government is local, right? So everyone wants to know what's in it for me.
You have to work your deals.
Right? Yeah. So what's in it for me?
It's not what makes sense. It's what deals are made.
Right. Versus like what may be better for potentially the country, or like we're doing this project, we're all in on this project, and again, high-speed rail throughout all of Asia, right? And it's like, and meanwhile we're here fighting over like just to get high-speed rail. I mean, it's crazy. Like crazy. And again, some of these other countries, it's sad, but it's like they are more efficient,
Well, it's funny, and I talk about our baby steps, right? So when I first moved to Washington, and I think in particular King County, the first thing I ever got to vote on was the Sounder, like the light rail expansion, or like even I think the initial,
right.
Maybe it was the initial expansion, or even the first one. I don't remember. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh man, this is like so far in the future, like when this is actually going to get done, it'll be irrelevant. And then now, living in the day where it is done, it's gone farther. They've taken baby steps to like go to Bellevue and Redmond, and now down south to Federal Way, which is a great place for that to drop off. As someone who lives in the area, it's a great spot. All the things that are connected with the light rail, that they've perfected on doing over the years. They do it quicker now and on budget most of the time, when they did the UW expansion. So like, again, like you said, everything's local. We do it right here in at least Seattle and the greater King County area. So anyway, sidetrack on train conversations, but you can do it right, and it does matter that it's local. And this is why you should vote next week, no matter what, because your local elections matter more than anything. Especially in states that do ballot initiatives, because those things are truly what your taxes pay for. So.
And the scene. Okay, great. And websites. This is the fourth quarter 2024 conversation. Mark Michael, Eric Willis, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you, Mark.